Good morning and welcome you all to this session of fluid machines. Now, in the last class, we derived this expression that this H represents that head or the energy per unit weight that is being delivered by the fluid to the rotor is given by this expression. And the nomenclature again I repeat that VW1 and VW2 are the tangential component of fluid velocities at inlet and outlet of the rotor respectively, and U1, U2 are the linear velocities of the rotor at inlet and outlet. Now, as I have told that rotor consists of a number of blades, moving rows of blades, more rows of blades, and each rows have number of blades which constitutes number of blade passages. So, therefore, here we will show a typical section of a rotor with blades. Now, the blade is shown like this with a broken path to show the inlet and outlet portion. So, we will concentrate our attention at the inlet and outlet. Now, here what we will do, the velocity of the fluid at both inlet and outlet will be shown with a vector diagram. Now, what is that? At the inlet, if we show the vector diagram which is known as velocity triangle, you see that V1 is the fluid velocity, absolute velocity of the fluid. Now, U1 is the linear velocity of the blade which is tangential at this point. Tangential means which is perpendicular to the radial direction. So, this is a vector diagram where this is VR1 is the relative velocity of the fluid with respect to the blade at this point, at the point of inlet. That means one can show that VR1, the relative velocity, is V1 minus U1. That means this is the absolute velocity of the fluid, and this is the velocity, this U1 is the direction of the velocity, blade velocity here, which is U1, and if we draw it in scales, then if we complete this triangle, this will be the direction of the relative velocity. That is the velocity with which fluid is entering the rotor blade or entering the rotor blade at the inlet of the rotor blade with respect to the rotor. That means this is the velocity with respect to the rotor. To show this relative velocity, we draw this velocity triangle which is the velocity vector or vector triangle. So, here also vector diagram, V2 is the absolute velocity of the fluid, and you see that V2 is the absolute velocity. Here also if we write VR2, that is the relative velocity of the fluid at the outlet of the blade with respect to the blade will be nothing but its absolute velocity minus the blade velocity. And blade velocity we will be having in the tangential direction, that is omega R2, this is this one. So, if this is the blade velocity and this is the outlet velocity, if you complete this vector triangle, so this will be VR2. Okay. So, this way we will always draw the velocity triangle which is the vector triangle. Always we will write this, and this is one way simple to understand. If you take U2 here, VR2 plus U2 will be V2. You see in the triangle VR2 plus U2, here you see this VR2, this is U2. That means U2 VR2 is in the same direction. If they are added, we get V2 in the opposite direction as the resultant velocity. That way you can understand this vector triangle. Here also VR1 plus U1 is V1. So, if you take this one, in this case also you see this is VR1 and this is U1. So, U1 added with VR1 in the same direction gives the value of V1, which is in the opposite direction. This is V1. This way one can understand the vector diagram at the first level, which is known as velocity triangle. Now, if we write this from the velocity triangle, we do a trigonometric thing. What is this? If we denote this alpha 1 as the angle made by the absolute velocity with the tangential direction. This is the tangential direction, that direction along with the blade speed is the direction of the blade speed. This is the tangential direction. And beta 1 is the angle made by the relative velocity with the tangential direction at inlet. Similarly, alpha 2 is the angle made by the absolute velocity at the outlet with the tangential direction, and beta 2 is the angle made by the relative velocity at the outlet with the tangential direction. Now, let us write here for the inlet one, you see we can write with this triangle VR1 square, taking this triangle into consideration, trigonometric relation V1 square, that means square of two sides, plus U1 square, and this angle is acute, minus twice U1, this is U1, into the perpendicular length, that is V1, the projection of V1 on U1, V1 cos alpha 1. VR1 square is equal to V1 square plus U1 square minus twice U1 into V1 cos alpha 1. This can be written as VR1 square is equal to V1 square plus U1 square minus twice U1, and this V1 cos alpha, it is given here, this projection of V1, that is a component of V1 in the tangential direction, that is nothing but our tangential component of absolute velocity of the fluid at inlet, which already we defined, twice U1 V1, or one can write twice U1 VW1 is equal to V1 square plus U1 square minus VR1 square. Okay. Now, the similar way, if we write it here at the outlet, we will get what we will get, VR2 square, that means the square of this side is equal to square of this side plus square of this side, that means V2 square plus U2 square plus U2 square minus twice U2, this is U2 into V2 cos alpha 2 minus U2 twice U2 into V2 cos alpha 2. Well, and this V2 cos alpha 2 again is VW2. See, this is VW2. That means the tangential component of velocity, absolute velocity of the fluid at outlet. So, one can also write here twice U1 VW1 twice U2 VW2 equals to V2 square plus U2 square minus VR2 square. Well, now if we subtract this one from this, we get a very important relation. What is this? This one is like this, that we can write VW1 in this way, U1 minus VW2 U2 by G, which we already know as E, the energy per unit mass given by the fluid, now can be written from these two expressions, this one, okay, and this one, these two expressions as V1 square minus V2 square by 2G. From these two expressions, now I am writing plus U1 square minus U2 square by 2G plus VR2 square minus VR1 square by 2G. So what I have done now, this expression was proved earlier, deduced earlier, not proved, deduced earlier as the energy per unit mass that is being delivered by the fluid to the rotor, which can be splitted into three components like this with the help of the trigonometric relations of the velocity triangles at inlet and outlet. Velocity triangles at inlet and outlet are nothing but the velocity vector diagram at the inlet and outlet. With the help of the simple trigonometric relations, we have got this. Now, here absolutely we see one thing is apparent, that the net energy exchange or the net energy delivered by the fluid depends. I have got three components. One is the change in its kinetic energy. This is purely change in its kinetic energy, change in the absolute velocity. And this part, so this is known as the change in dynamic head. Change in kinetic or dynamic head. Head is again the energy per unit mass. This is known as change in dynamic head. And these two parts corresponds to the change in pressure head. Change in pressure head, or it is known as static head. This is a loose term, the pressure head. Actually, these two things are responsible for change in the fluid pressure, and in a very strict sense they represent the change in the flow work of the fluid, which loosely sometimes we tell the pressure head, the pressure energy per unit mass, which is manifested in terms of the change in the pressure. So, therefore, when the fluid delivers energy, its dynamic it changes its kinetic energy, at the same time it changes its pressure. Pressure is also reduced, kinetic energy is reduced, this part is positive, V1 is greater than V2, and this part is also positive, so that the change in the pressure head or static head is such that the fluid releases the pressure. Again, in the other way, when the fluid gains, then this is negative. That means when the fluid gains energy in the form of its dynamic head and also in the form of its pressure or static head. Now, an understanding, for a physical understanding, that how does it work as a change in the pressure head, we can think a simple system like this. Consider how a fluid, when it gets displaced in the field of a rotation, that means when there is a tangential velocity of the fluid which is imparted by the rotating rotor, then if a fluid changes its position from one radial location to other radial location, how the pressure changes is being determined by this quantity. This can be explained very simply, probably you people know at this point, that let us consider a container like that which is filled with fluid, and which this container is rotated with an angular velocity in this vertical plane about a horizontal axis. This way the container is being rotated. So, with this rotation, let us consider the fluid has a slow motion in the radial direction. Fluid moves radially. From one radial location, fluid moves to other radial location. This is the central point. That means, this is the axis of rotation. From the axis of rotation, fluid changes its radial position from one position to another. So, in that case, if we consider a fluid mass like this, a simple fluid mass, a small elemental fluid mass, let us show it here, an elemental fluid mass like this. And here in this case, what happens when the fluid moves with a tangential velocity here, because of the rotation of this with an angular speed omega of this container, what happens? The fluid has a centrifugal force and centripetal force. That means, any fluid mass is being balanced at a location by virtue of both the forces. One is centrifugal force, which is away from this in the radial direction, away from the central axis, and another is the centripetal force, which is inward radial force. And this inward radial force and the centripetal force and the outward radial force, the centrifugal force, both of them balance each other to make the fluid in position to rotate. Not, it is neither going out or neither coming in. It slowly moves in the radial direction, the way it has to be moved along the according to the flow field. So, this centripetal force causes a radial pressure field here. That means a radial pressure field is generated. So, this radial pressure field actually exerts a pressure force on this fluid element in the radial direction. If we understand this in a very simple case, you will see that if we consider this as the r direction, now let us consider the pressure here at P, and if we think that this is a small radial length or height dr, then the pressure here can be written as P plus del P del R by neglecting the higher order terms in a Taylor series expansion. And if we consider the cross sectional area, this area as dA, then we can write the centrifugal force equals to the centripetal force, which is nothing but the pressure force in this fluid element. Now, what is the centrifugal force? So, centrifugal force is rho times the volume, that is mass, dA into delta R. That is the volume of the fluid element into density, mass into v theta, if this is the tangential component of velocity of the fluid, v theta square by r. This equals to the centripetal force, that is the inward radial force, Fr. This Fr is what? This Fr is given by inward radial force, which is P plus del P del R into dA minus from this side P into dA. This becomes equal to del P del R dA. Now, if you put Fr there, dA del R cancels, we simply get an expression that del P del R is rho v theta square by r. So, you see this rotational velocity is responsible for a radial pressure gradient to be set in here, radial pressure field rather, radial pressure field or radial pressure gradient to be filled in here, so that from one point to other point there is a change in the pressure, and that is why the fluid changes its pressure if it moves from one radial point to another radial point. Now, the same thing you can get if you write the Navier-Stokes equation in general in a cylindrical coordinate system in r direction. If you recall the Navier-Stokes equation in a cylindrical polar coordinate system, you will see in r direction the Navier-Stokes equation is like that. This is for your knowledge, for your information I am telling you, provided probably you know these things. This is the Navier-Stokes equation. In the left hand side, the inertial term, this is the dV dt, the substantial derivative, change of radial velocity with t, this is the radial acceleration, minus v theta square by r equals to minus del P del R plus mu into, it is the Laplacian. I am not writing this thing in full, I am not repeating this, this you will get from any fluid mechanics course, minus VR by R square minus 2 by R square del V theta del. Now, here I will tell you that while deducing this expression, what we first did, we considered the radial flow is so small or radial acceleration is so small that this is neglected, because whenever we write that the centrifugal force is equal to this centripetal force, that means this is the mass times v theta square by r, it is the only centrifugal acceleration, okay, and this is equal to the net inward radial pressure force. So, here we neglect the radial acceleration and at the same time we neglect any viscous force acting on this element. That means, if we neglect the viscous force, the entire thing 0, and if we neglect the radial acceleration, you get the same thing, that del P del R is rho v theta square by r. Okay, now here if you consider the rotation of this container, if you consider v theta as omega r, then you can write del P del R is equal to rho omega square r square, that means omega square r. So, if you integrate this del P del R dr, and here we consider P as a function of r, not as a function of theta, then we can write dP dr is equal to rho omega square r dr. Well, so we can write this by taking rho here, that integration of del P by rho, or we can write this del P by rho 1 upon rho here is equal to integration of omega square r dr. If we integrate from 1 to 2, where 1 is a point at initial point, 2 is the final point, that means if the particle moves from the mass moves from a location 1 to 2, that means inlet to outlet, this can be written as omega square r2 square minus r1 square by 2. So, therefore, you see we can write now dP considering P as a function of the radial location only for your understanding. This is u2 square minus u1 square by 2. That means, this is the flow work delivered by the fluid, which is u2 square minus u1 square by 2. You see here also this is the flow work given to the fluid, I am sorry, here it is delivered by the fluid, u1 square minus u2 square by 2g, that is per unit weight. So, from here you get a concept that the flow work, that means that is the change in the pressure, that if you integrate for an incompressible flow, it will be given P2 minus P1 by rho is equal to u2 square minus u1 square by 2. Okay. That means one can write that P1 minus P2 by 2 is equal to u1 square minus u2 square by 2. So, therefore, it is clearly seen that since u2, let us consider an incompressible flow, this will it is easy to understand. If u2, if u1 is the inlet and u2 is the outlet, so if u2 is at a higher radial location, then u2 is more than u1. So, therefore, this is negative. So, P1 minus P2 will be negative, that means P2 will be higher than P1. So, if u2 is at the higher radial location, but if u2 is the lower radial location, then u2 will be lower, that is 2 is at a lower radial location, u2 will be lower than u1, then it is positive, then P1 minus P2 is positive, and in that case P1 is higher than P2, there will be reduction in the pressure. So, therefore, we see that this term u1 square minus u2 square represents a static, as we already shown earlier in this, that this represents a change in the pressure or static head. Similarly, is there for the relative velocity. Again, I write it to explain you. After this understanding, that I show you that finally what we get, H is equal to E by M is equal to V1 square minus V2 square by 2 plus U1 square minus U2 square by 2 plus VR2 square minus VR1 square by 2. Now, let us understand first then how this term is the change in the pressure. This term is the change in dynamic head, change in dynamic head, that is energy per unit mass. This term is the change in static head, change in static head. And here we have understood this, that for the displacement of the fluid particles from one radial location 1 to another radial location 1, there is a change in the static head. Similarly, if there is a change in the relative velocity, there will be also a change in the pressure. This is very simple to understand, that if we consider the entire rotor is fixed, that means you give a opposite direction rotation, make the rotor fixed. Then the fluid will pass through the blade passages with a velocity which is nothing but the relative velocity. So, its change will take place provided the cross sectional area of flow passage changes, and with that change the flow velocity will change, and the change in the flow velocity will be directly related to the change in pressure. Simple Bernoulli's equation, if you discard the viscous effect, it will give simply the delta P by rho is equal to the difference between the square of the velocity v2 square minus v1 square by 2. So, therefore, the change in the velocity with respect to the rotor, when the rotor is fixed, which depends only in the cross sectional area of the rotor passage, will indicate or imply a change in the static pressure. So, this way you see this is the change in the static head or pressure head. So, therefore, this is clear now for turbines where H is positive, H positive, that means H greater than 0 by convention, that means the energy is delivered by the fluid. And if we have the individual components all to be additive, then what will happen? V1 is always greater than V2. So, in turbines the inlet velocity of the fluid is always greater than that of the outlet velocity. U1 has to be greater than U2, that means inlet radial position, if it is a radial flow machines, that means if the flow takes place in bulk in the radial direction, then the inlet radial location has to be at a higher, the inlet to the blade is to be at a higher radial location than the outlet, and VR2 minus VR1 has to be positive, that means VR2 has to be greater than VR1. That means the outlet relative velocity has to be greater than the inlet relative velocity. Okay? So, outlet relative velocity greater means that the cross sectional passage of the blade in the direction of the flow has to be the convergent one. So, has to be the convergent, cross sectional passages has to be convergent. So, all these three are maintained in case of turbine, so that we get additive effect, all the individual terms are positive and they are added and give the things that the energy delivered by the fluid. While in pumps compressors the energy is absorbed by the fluid, that means energy is taken by the fluid. By convention this is negative, in that case V1 will be greater than, not less than V2, that means inlet velocity is higher than the outlet velocity, and U1 is less than U2, that means the inlet will be at a lower radial location than the outlet, so that U1 is less than U2, and VR2 is less than VR1. That means the outlet velocity, relative velocity of the fluid will be less than the inlet relative velocity. That means the flow passages will be diverging one. The flow passages will be diverging on, so that the outlet velocity relative to the fluid will be less than that at the inlet. So, that all the terms will be negative and will be additive in nature, so that we get the total energy gained by the fluid. So, this way we can understand the different components of this energy interactions as the change in dynamic head and change in static head. Okay. Thank you.